And now, time for a fish. In honour of Scotland, I brought along a herring to rival the kipper Boris Johnson produced in the leadership election. He said that Brussels bureaucrats had demanded that each kipper had to be accompanied by a plastic ice pillow. That was simply untrue. Even Donald Trump's never lied about a kipper. Going back decades, Johnson has lied about the EU. 1991, EU bureaucrats reject Italian demands for smaller condoms. Rubbish. The EU set rules on the shape of bananas. Nonsense. More recently, he claimed he was resigning from Theresa May's government, partly because the EU had prevented the UK from passing a law to save the lives of female cyclists. What a feminist that man is. So many women say that to me. Here is what we all need to decide. What do we do when a known liar becomes our Prime Minister? I've talked to journalists from several news organisations about this issue. They said they would be loath to use that word, liar. Remember when Andrew Marr told Penny Mordaunt her claim that the UK couldn't stop Turkey from joining the EU was strange? Well, it was strange. It was also untrue, a lie. Is it time for us to start using the L word? I believe that we need to start calling politicians out as liars when they lie. If we continue to be so polite, how will our viewers know that politicians are lying? And several of us have excellent online fact-checking services. We need to put more of that information into our broadcast programmes to help viewers spot the porky pies. Of course, politicians don't hold back from criticising us rudely and saying we lie. The Labour Party said that the panorama on anti-Semitism pervade deliberate and malicious misrepresentation to mislead the public. I am chair of a small charity, the Ethical Journalism Network, which helps journalists around the world uphold standards. I honestly never thought I would be campaigning here in the UK to establish the primacy of truth. If we are going to be asked to cast our vote on the basis of lies, then democracy is in trouble. Hang on a minute. Did that already happen? At Channel 4, I've commissioned many award-winning international films on Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, Iraq, Syria. But the films which matter most are those like MPs for Hire, which investigate our own country and its politicians. Another ploy of Trump and some of our own politicians is to accuse journalists of being negative and unpatriotic. Trump regularly attacks journalists for being the enemy of the people and criticises his opponents as negative and lacking in patriotism. He even said that the congresswomen he wanted to be sent home should be more positive and reminded them that they had an obligation to love their country, presumably before they got thrown out of it. Some of you will remember that Trump's chum, Nigel Farage, accused Andrew Marr of being an enemy. And you might remember the night that this woman, now Secretary of State for Business, Andrea Leadsom, told Emily Maitlis on Newsnight that broadcasters should be a bit patriotic because we all need to pull together. Boris Johnson's equivalent of Trump's attack on the negativity of journalists and his opponents is to rail against the doubters, the doomsters, and the gloomsters. I don't need any politician to tell me to be patriotic. I love my country. And it's not being a gloomster to question policies. That's the role of the free press in a democracy. But it's not all bad news. There is a leading politician standing up for truth. Michael Gove has launched a rapid rebuttal unit to give instant response to media myths and half-truths and to ensure that we, the people, are not being alarmed by scare stories or falsehoods. Now, I don't like to be a snitch, but there's someone Mr. Gove should keep an eye on. Yes, the UK's most famous recipient of EU farming subsidies, Dominic Cummings. Let's remind ourselves of just a few Vote Leave messages. The EU will ban the British kettle. Really, Dominic? The EU prevents us from protecting polar bears. Honestly, Dominic? Turkey, population 76 million, is joining the EU. Well, we're still waiting on that. In the difficult period we are entering, we need the truth and we need proper scrutiny of all our major politicians. Television is a bulwark of our democracy. Those who undermine its roles are undermining democracy. It's time for the television industry to stand up for itself and speak out publicly against what is happening. Yes, we are rivals, but we have to form a united front in opposing attempts to sideline our central role in the political life of this country. And we should forget the idea that the public can judge for themselves what is true. We showed 1,700 people 6 stories and asked them to judge which were true and which false. Only 4% of people got all the answers right. And why should they? They are not in a position to research the truth of stories. That's what journalists are there for. So with so much to be done to uphold the role of television in our democracy, where are the other old ladies to help me? All the women I started out with have gone. What happened to them? I feel a bit like a character in an Agatha Christie story. And then there was one. Were they all murdered? I'm the only one left. Did I do it? I'm the obvious suspect. Meanwhile, the men went on, gathering their MBEs and their OBEs and their fresh young wives. We need to do much better in keeping women in the workplace and ensuring careers are not blighted by having children. As the freelance editor of an ITV programme and a single parent, I had to go back to work after 6 weeks, and the percentage of women working freelance has increased since then. For those who are staff, much more could be done to introduce flexible working. But the problem, which is barely discussed, is the menopause. 1/4 of women suffer a significant system, and a major survey found that 1/4 of women also considered giving up work because these were so bad. Often this coincides with parents falling sick and children taking exams. That happened to me, and life was a real struggle. Major broadcasters and larger companies need to take the lead by offering flexible and reduced working to older women so they are not lost to the industry. Even getting your boss to understand there is such a thing as the menopause can be a problem. Kevin Ligo is an inspirational leader, but his knowledge of middle-aged women's medical matters is perhaps wanting. When he was my boss, we were in a meeting one day when he suddenly remarked that I looked seriously unwell. I said I was not ill. But you've gone all red and you seem to have a fever, he said. I repeated, I am not ill, Kevin, in what I thought was a meaningful way. And he repeated that I should go home. So I went back to my desk and announced I was leaving for the day. Everyone asked me why, and I said, because my boss has never heard of the menopause. More recently, Kevin has told me that this misunderstanding occurred because he assumed I was too young to be going through the change of life. What a charmer. Now, some of you may be aware that very occasionally I have a poem published. So tonight, I bring you a first, a MacTaggart poem. Think of me as your poet laureate. To avoid undermining my reputation as a serious journalist, I use various noms de plume. Tonight, my nom de plume will be Sweetie. So, here to conclude is my poem. My TV dream. I have a dream. Boris and Jeremy together on telly, or is that a nightmare? All BBC presenters massively overpaid equally. A programme about this island making more noise than Love Island, and dirty bastards arrested before they die, or they just die. Either option is good. The menopause is not mistaken for malaria, and I can at last come out and admit I was 12 when The Sound of Music was released. Work that out. And so I say to you all, so long, good night, auf Wiedersehen, goodbye. The sun has gone to bed, and so must I. Thank you.